Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transformations of the Global System. I am Dr. Nicole Warmington Granston, and today we'll be looking at an introduction to global politics. What we'll be covering in today's discussion is laying the foundations of global politics, focusing heavily on globalization and how economic, political, cultural, and technological changes are reshaping international relations. But what is global politics? Now, global politics studies how states, international organizations, corporations, and individuals interact across borders. The key characteristics of it are increasing interconnectedness between countries, growth of international institutions and global governance, the expansion of global markets and communication systems, and increasing importance of transnational issues. Now, the main actors in global politics are states or countries, international organizations such as the United Nations, World Trade Organizations, the International Monetary Fund. There's also multinational corporations, or some people call them transnational corporations. There's also non-governmental organizations and civil society groups, and even individuals and social movements that are the main actors of global politics. There is another major actor, that of globalization. So we're going to define what we mean by globalization. Now, globalization is said to be a central concept to the idea of global politics. It is defined as the increasing integration and interdependence of economies, societies, cultures, and political systems around the world. Now, there's this major discussion: is globalization a myth or a reality? So there's arguments in support of it, and they are as follows. Arguments for globalization really looks at how it transforms world politics. In the first instance, it notes that there is economic transformation, that this leads to rapid economic change that has created new forms of world politics, that markets, trade, and finance increasingly operate at a global scale, and that countries are more economically interdependent than they were ever before. So what we find is that the pace of economic transformation has created new forms of world politics. So when we look at it, when we think back to, the supply chain issues, the role that multinational corporations play at even global trade, when we had the pandemic of COVID-19, how all this stopped. So we kind of see how all these elements are cogs in a bigger system, and when one doesn't work, it threw everything off. So it showed how interconnected countries were when it came to trade. Another argument for globalization is the emerging global polity. We're seeing where political authority is no longer controlled only by nation states. We have international institutions and global rules that influence state behavior, and that governance is increasingly happening at the global level. Examples of some of these international institutions are the United Nations, or the UN, the World Trade Organization, or the WTO, that is in charge of monitoring and managing international trade. And then we also have the International Monetary Fund, which is like the lender of last resort and helps to maintain foreign exchange rates. So we're finding that states now more often than ever must cooperate internationally to solve problems. Then another argument for global politics is that we've actually seen a communications revolution. We've seen where technological advances have transformed communication. Time and space appear to be collapsing, and information moves instantly across the globe. We've seen the role that internet, social media, smartphones, and even satellite communication that have played in this revolution. We're seeing how more and more through these examples that technology connects people globally in real time. Then they're saying that we're developing what is known as a global culture. We're seeing where cultures are becoming more interconnected. We're seeing where there's a cosmopolitan or global culture that is developing, and that there's also shared media, brands, music, and even values that are being spread internationally. Some examples of this is how widespread Hollywood films are, but even in reverse, we're seeing the major impact that Bollywood films from Nollywood in Nigeria and Ghana, and even films coming out of Korea has been having an impact on the rest of the world. We're seeing global fashion trends developing, the support of international sports such as soccer, and even streaming platforms that you can actually pick up almost anywhere, such as Netflix. So we're seeing where cultural exchange is leading to some degree of cultural homogenization, and there's sometimes some concern with that. We're also seeing where global risks require global solutions. We find that many problems cross borders and cannot be solved by one state alone. Some examples of this are climate change, pandemics, terrorism, financial crises, and cyber security threats. We find that these things need greater international cooperation. Now, on the other side, the criticisms of globalization are as follows: that basically, some would say globalization has been along for a long time, and right now it's just basically a buzzword. Some critics argue that globalization is exaggerated. States still remain the most powerful actors in the global system, and that the term is more fashionable than meaningful. Another criticism of globalization is that it leads to uneven distribution of benefits. Not everyone benefits equally from globalization. Wealth and opportunities are distributed unevenly, and we find that some countries or social groups gain more than others. So what we've been seeing is that there's this growing inequality between countries in the global north or developed countries and those in the global south or developing countries. We're even seeing the growing inequality within countries itself. In the United States, they're saying that we're losing the middle class and that more people are either being relegated to the lower class or the upper 1%. We're seeing exploitation of labor, where factories that were once the backbone of the global north, they're moving to the global south because they can manipulate labor prices there. It's much cheaper, and they want to produce their goods at a lower cost to make a greater profit. And then there's also the issue of economic dependence. The third issue is problems with global governance. We find that global institutions sometimes lack accountability, favor powerful states, and can be ineffective in solving crisis. And this is some of the major criticisms we have for organizations such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization. So with these arguments for and against globalization, we know that there is the paradox of globalization. On one hand, globalization is portrayed as progress and modernization, and it spreads market-based and liberal democratic values. But on the other hand, we see where critics see it as a continuation of Western dominance and that it may present a new form of imperialism. So we see that globalization can both connect and divide the world. But what are some of the major debates that come up? Why it is we should study the transformation of the global system? So for one debate that comes up is the nation state losing power? You say that some people argue that globalization weakens state sovereignty, while others believe that states still control major decisions. Another debate is, does globalization benefit everyone? Supporters emphasize the growth and innovation, while critics focus on inequality and exploitation. And the third major debate that comes up is that, can global problems be solved collectively? Some believe that cooperation is necessary, but other critics would say that national interests often create conflict. So with that, I wanted to leave with some key terms that we discussed today and that you could do further research on. Those are globalization, sovereignty, global governance, interdependence, cosmopolitanism, imperialism, international organization, and transnational actors. I wanted to kind of have another takeaway that there's three things that should stand out to you. Is that the world is becoming increasingly interconnected. Globalization creates both opportunities and inequalities, and many modern challenges require international cooperation. So we'll leave today's discussion with this. Global politics today is shaped by the tension between growing global interconnectedness and the continuing struggle for power, sovereignty, and inequality. Thank you.